Hello, everybody. Hi. Special time today, 8 o'clock p.m. I kind of like streaming in the evening, although I just have to let y'all know I am so tired. I am so tired, and so if I seem not my usual talkative, funny, witty kind of self, I am tired today. But I did not want the week to go by without making some progress on the Robin Fabric Collage Quilt. So we're going to hang out and close out today with some relaxing fabric collage. How does that sound? Hi, everybody. Hello. Hopefully I didn't confuse you too much. Today was kind of up in the air with some family stuff going on and unsure of times until this morning. So here we are streaming in the evening. I have almost every light in my studio on so that you can see in the dark in the studio. And I'm sure from outside looking in, it is glowing in this space because all the lights are on. Just so we can see in here. Tonight, we're going to be working on the head and the neck and the underbelly of the robin. The robin is a drawing that I did. You can get this drawing for free. There's links down in the description box. There's also a link for a bundle, which includes this robin and 3 other bird drawings that I did, where you could do all kinds of quilts with these drawings, y'all. In this series, we're doing fabric collage, but this year we have done series on the thread painting of the robin. You could do thread painting. You could do fabric painting. You can do raw edge applique. You could even do turned edge applique. So many things you could do with this, right? In this series, we're doing fabric collage, but the possibilities are endless on different ways you could use these drawings. And I hope you get creative with them. And if you do, I hope you share your pictures over on the Creative Crew. Y'all might hear the dogs barking. It's raining outside. We can't put them outside. It's pouring down raining. So if they're barking, you might hear them in the background. I am so sorry. Yeah, do you want to take a look at my progress so far? Let's take a look at my desk. So up on the screen, you're going to see sort of my inspiration photo for colors for this bird, right? And here is our progress so far. Last week we started on the chest, which is colors that I definitely wanted to start with this quilt. Sadly, my desk looks a little bit dark for you. It's much brighter in person. Trying to get the lighting right is not my forte, unfortunately. But tonight I wanted to fill in the head. If you look at the inspiration photo, the bird has his head turned to the side, right? You kind of see a little gray triangle right there, sort of like a band of gray around his neck. And so that's what I want to do in this area. And then if you look up under where his little tail is, right, before the tail feathers start, where his little bottom is, he has a little white feathers. And so I'm going to come in with white through here. Maybe white and a couple sprigs of gray. Like if I were to enlarge that photo, you might see little sprigs of gray like right there. And so that's what I'm going to do. On his head, if you see around his eyes, he has some little white feathers above and below his eye. And a couple little sprigs underneath his beak. And I kind of want to replicate that. But, you know, for the sake of art and creativity, I don't think it has to be like an exact likeness of the bird. Do you know what I'm saying? So if we leave those things off, I really would not be devastated. All right, so I have a couple bins of just scraps here, right? And I thought we would start with some black scraps. Black and gray, I have an assortment of those in this bin together. And we'll work on his head and that little neck band first. And we'll see how we're doing with time-wise. As much as I love to stay up late, I am tired. And not only that, we have to get up super early because Harlan is shooting an archery tournament tomorrow. So we have to get up before the sun even rises to get ready for that. So we're going to see how much we get done, okay? And there's not going to be a lot of, I have not had time to just sit down and go through this fabric and kind of make a game plan for tonight. So I'm just going to be talking to you and you're going to see me fumbling through all of this. And hopefully by the end of this video, something comes out of it that is rather pretty. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I just want to say, I see Janice here. Janice and her husband Steve came by. They brought me this shirt. And I just have to tell you, Janice, I was at the hospital and we were in the waiting room. And I'm sitting there. And just sitting there. And a lady came. And I noticed that she was looking at me and looking at me like she recognized me. But I know that I did not know her. Right? But she was looking at me like she recognized me. Does that ever happen to you? Anyway, as she came closer, she said, "Roll Tide." And I was like, "Roll Tide." What do you say when someone says that? I just sit it back. I said, "Are you from Alabama?" She's like, "No, but we're huge fans." I said, "Well, my friends, Janice and Steve, brought me this shirt this week. And so, Roll Tide." Janice and Steve have been watching for a couple years here on my YouTube channel. And for part of their vacation, they came to visit me. And we had a great little afternoon. I thought that was awesome. I'm going to just start going through some black fabric. I wish there was a way I could make this brighter. How could we do that? Maybe if I brought this light this way some. I can't really move it closer, but that is a little bit better, isn't it? Do you think? All right, now I'm going to be really perfectly honest with you. My first instinct, as far as raw edge applique goes, is to cut this whole head from one piece of fabric and carry on with the rest of the project, right? But in the name of fabric collage, which this series is all about, we're going to break the head up into several pieces of blackish fabric, different prints, different tones, lighters and darkers of black, and fill in this head area. Now, with that said, I drew in a sun right here in the background. So I kind of feel like that's our light source, right? And so with his head right here at the sun, maybe we should go lighter black to darker black, right? So let's pull a couple black fabrics out. One of them that's calling my name is just sitting right here. And this is actually flannel. But how fantastic would that be, right? So let's bring in some of that. And I really love this older vintage style, really small print fabric. And this is really dark. So maybe let's save that for that. This is a lighter bit, lighter. It's hard for you to see here at night. But this is a little bit lighter shade black than that is. Ooh, and we have some of this, which is even lighter. So let's not get super crazy with 50 million little pieces. Let's do 3. Let's start with 3, and I guess I need some scissors. Let's find some scissors. Let's bring this whole bin over. How about that? And I have not had any time today to plan. So y'all remember last week we worked with freezer paper, right? To sort of cut these pieces in so that they fit in that exact shape. And I really like that idea. So let me warm up the iron. Maybe we'll break out a piece of freezer paper. Because I think that's a really great way to do it. I really like that, and I really got the nice exact shape. So I have a basket of scraps here. And this is sort of my scrap basket of fusibles, really. I have freezer paper left over from last week. We'll break out some of that. I also have like Heat and Bond Light pieces. I do have a package of Steam-A-Seam down there, which, to be really honest, I've only used once. And I prefer Heat and Bond Light. That's just me. But it's a whole bunch of really usable pieces of all of this stuff, right? So let's just... Here's some freezer paper. Perfect. Let's just tuck that back under. And I did learn my lesson from last week. Instead of struggling, it is way easier to use a light pad for doing this stuff. I'm just going to bring my light pad in. And you know what? I'm going to have to fold this up because it's sort of tucking under my desk and messing me up a little bit. It's okay if you fold it like that. Doesn't matter. So let's work on the head area a little bit. That's Heat and Bond. I'm going to be using a freezer paper to start with. Hi, everybody. Wow, it's 1 a.m. where you are. Good night. Get some good rest. Let's find pair of scissors. These are not the scissors that I thought I was getting out at all. Hold on a second. I brought over the wrong drawer. And a pen. All right, here's some good cutting scissors. Let's use these. Let's turn this light pad on, and I'm gonna just start here. So I want to go lighter to darker. And I want to overlap them, just like we did here. Remember we went darker to lighter up that way? We're going to do darker to lighter up the shape of the head. Let's start with this bottom layer and overlap as we add to the lightest part of the head. Let's do that. Because that sounds like a really good plan to me. Oh yeah, keep me on in the background. I will just talk you right to sleep. I certainly will. I know we've had several discussions in Zoom on Patreon, and I've heard many people tell me that they turn me on and then fall right to sleep in their chair. I kind of love that. As long as you don't have nightmares where like I'm chasing you because you hear my voice in your sleep. All right, so I know I went that much darkness. But what if we come up his head this way and do like this, right? What if we do that? I think that works. So I want to cut this section out. Now, y'all remember, because we're using freezer paper, I can trace with the right side of the pattern facing up, right? And I'm tracing on the dull side of the freezer paper. That's the shiny side. And when I fuse this to my fabric, I'm going to have my fabric with the right side facing up. Okay, I'm going to move this over here, at least this first time, so you can see in case this is your first time watching. I need to first get the wrinkles out of that fabric. So that's the right side facing up. The plasticky side goes on the fabric and sticks right to it. There we go. I don't really like using a whole lot of heat on that without the glass, tempered glass piece. And now I'm going to just cut this piece out. Yeah, she was like looking at me like she knew me. And she was walking up and she was like, "Roll Tide." I confess I'm not a sports person, and I don't know what you say back when someone says that to you. So I was like, "Roll Tide." I don't know what you say. But then we got to talking, and she was such a nice person. And it turns out we don't live too far apart. So that was neat. And I got to meet her because I was wearing this shirt. So that's really cool. Now the cool thing about the freezer paper, you know, if this was Heat and Bond Light, that Heat and Bond Light would be stuck on the fabric, right? And so limiting the uses of the scraps, but the freezer paper comes off, no residue. Look at that valuable real estate right there for another project down the road, right? I need a glue stick. I just got done eating supper maybe 10 minutes before the live started. I did not get my glue sticks out. I did not get anything ready. And we've been gone most of the day. Here's a little, just a note card. I'm going to add some glue stick to the back side of this. Primarily along the edges. Like that. And we're going to glue it right in place. Like so. And then I'm using 3 different fabrics, so let's trace out the next shape we want to do of the mid-tone black fabric that I picked out. And now I know that I want this to overlap, so why did I cut it like that? I could have cut straight across. Could have cut that straight across. Is it stuck? It's stuck pretty good. All right, well, I didn't really think that one out. Let's do this. Because I really like this shape. Like that. Right? And then we're going to come up like so. And I'm going to go right underneath of this area like that. I think that looks good. The beauty of this is that if you're making this quilt, is you can do this however you want to, right? Peggy has been shredding papers all afternoon, and you got your desk cleared off for the most part. Congratulations. Isn't it nice to go in the next day to a space that is all clear. It's so refreshing, isn't it? All right, the next one is this flannel fabric. I feel like I have a little bit of heartburn going on. You ever try to go to sleep with heartburn? That is the worst. All right, let's just fuse that right there. Janice said I did a good job saying good, because I don't know what to say. All right, we're going to cut that piece out. When we left the house early this morning, it was sunny and slightly warm and beautiful. And by lunchtime, you could look out the window and see it getting cloudy and cloudy and cloudy. And by the time we left to come home, it looked like it was going to start pouring down, raining any minute, and it was super chilly. I like cutting my pieces out. Like, I don't know if you can see that or not. Just right outside of my traced line. Sometimes I find if I cut right on my traced line, I lose a little bit of size. I'm not sure why that is. It could be my tracing is a little bit smaller than actual size. I don't know. We're going to let that go. But I like cutting my pieces out just right outside that traced line. For me, it just seems to be a little bit more accurate. It's putting glue on the wrong side. There we go. She's all glued up. Now, which way did I have this going? Like this. Oh, you know what? I want to take this paper off before I layer the next one on. There we go. And just overlapping ever so slightly. Perfect. And then let's bring in freezer paper and trace this top section out. I kind of really dig this freezer paper method for this fabric collage. I think it goes by pretty quickly. Again, I'm going to follow this outline because I like this shape. And we're going to come like that. And over like this. And then down like this for the beak. And you know what? I'm going to cut this all out in one piece of fabric. We're going to come back and do the eye over top of this piece right here. Now, I've watched lots and lots and lots in the last few months, like fabric collage quilters. And there's so many ways that you could do this, right? A lot of people just cut lots of tiny pieces and just fill in this area with layers and layers of lots of little pieces. And I think that's wonderful. And I feel like everybody sort of has their own style, right? This is kind of my jam right here. If I'm not going to do one great big piece for the head, 3 smaller pieces. That's more my jam, right? So I'm going to cut this out in one piece and then layer the eye over top of it. And we're going to do little sprigs of white, right? So I think let's do that. Oh, me too, Peggy. The weather is just back and forth, back and forth. I am, even though it's rained for like the last 4 months, it seems like, I am thankful for the rain tonight to sort of hopefully wash away some of the pollen that's happening right this minute. Because if I walk outside, my eyes just start watering. All right, so that was the middle. This one, I really like for the lightest black fabric. And of course, it is a wrinkly hot mess. Let's flatten that out a little bit. And then let's cut this out. Cutting, cutting, cutting. I feel like in moments of a quiet that I should be talking. But my brain is just tired. I will say that things like this quilt and doing this, cutting pieces of fabric, going through scraps and picking the right color of fabric, gluing them down and making a picture out of all these bits of pieces. This is like therapy to me. This is like a good time. And I would tell you, I could spend hours doing this without saying one word. Do you know what I mean? Have some good music on in the background. And, wow, the flannel really grips to that freezer paper, I will tell you that. There we go. That may be the introvert in me, right? I could sit here in total silence, not saying anything for hours, and just feel like I've had the best time ever. That's right. All right, how did this go? It went like this. Like that. Let's see if I can poke that paper off before we move on, or if it needs to sit for a second. Sometimes it needs to sit for a second to sort of grab on, but there we go. That is very cool. Let me see if you can see that with the light turned off. It's really kind of dark. But the head is laid in there. Before we tackle the eyeball and the little white specks, let's come in here with some gray and fill in this space. And I feel like I might have covered some of that up. I might have. So let's pull out this pattern. I did. Which I guess is perfectly okay if I did. Or we can layer over top of what I've done But that is, I kind of really like that little sliver. Let's find some light gray. And you know what? I think this neck piece I'm going to do out of one piece of fabric. So let's see if I have any grays in here that I really like for that neck piece. Let's see. And I'll tell you, my family is so supportive, being really quiet for me to stream live this evening. I appreciate that a lot. They're so nice. Here's a piece of gray. Let's audition this one. That might be too light. Hopefully I have a good gray in this scrap bin. Let's see. You know what? I even kind of like this. This isn't really gray, but it's got a lot of white in it. Let's put that to the side. What's interesting is I don't have a lot of gray scraps. I mean, this is it. Black and gray mixed together in this bin. And it's mostly black pieces. And that tells me I don't work with a lot of gray. Oh, what is this? Oh, let's pull that out and we'll take a look at that. There we go. We've got 3 to choose from. One of them has to just be perfect. And for this one, we're going to use the pattern because I've lost the markings on this. So let's do that. Shiny side down, turn the light pad on, and my pen. Ask what you use the Pellon for. Is that in place of the freezer paper? So for this particular quilt, the foundation that I'm building this quilt on, this is Pellon 830. And it's they call it a tracing fabric. To me, if I were to describe this to you, I would say it's a very, very, very lightweight cutaway because it doesn't tear. Do you know what I'm saying? But you can cut it. You can certainly see through it. And you can sew through it. You can quilt through it. And it really doesn't add a lot of weight to the overall project. So I'm using this instead of a foundation fabric to build the quilt on. I'm using the Pellon. The freezer paper I'm using to trace my pieces and cut them out. And then I'm using the glue to glue my pieces down instead of a fusible like Heat and Bond Light. Not saying that I won't use Heat and Bond Light at some point in this quilt. I probably will. But for right now, I'm really digging the freezer paper method that we're doing here. Doug Grove says, our thinking is so much alike. Twinsies. Lisa, what about the back of the polka dot? The back of the polka dot. Oh, polka dot. Did I have polka dot fabric for the gray? Ooh, this. All right, let's take a look at it when we audition. Is that, I wonder if that's what you were talking about. Using the back side. Maybe. Maybe that's what you meant. Sometimes I think y'all mean one thing. And you mean something totally different. And I got it all wrong. Let's trace out this whole neck ring as one piece. Because it's my quilts. And I can fabric collage the way I want to. That whole piece right there. And down this way. And right up through there. One whole piece. Poor Munchie. She's having to be quiet because Mommy's working late tonight. Poor Harlan's trying to keep her quiet. Bless his heart. All right. There's my neck piece. But that's a really good reason to have your pattern close by, right? You can see I've marked details of colors that I plan on using. And it's also a good reference if you cover up parts like I've done. You can always pull out your reference piece and trace directly from that, right? Let's turn that off. And then we can bring this back. Let's audition some fabric for the gray. All right, so I found, if I were to zoom into that, you kind of see that it's speckled or like multicolored gray, black, white, all in there. So let's just audition these pieces real quick so we can move on. I kind of really like that. I really do. I kind of really like that. And that kind of just goes with everything right there. So that's a top contender. And then we had this piece, which is more black. Yeah, so even though that's really pretty, that's not really what I'm going for. And then we have this really light gray. Let's just fold up a piece of that and stick it in there. And that's really light, don't you think? I think that's too bright. So, the polka dot. Let's just take a look at the back side of the polka dot. Which kind of looks gray, doesn't it? Like so. Which would work, wouldn't it? An unconventional way to use this fabric, which I love, right? I love thinking outside of the box like that, Donna. Good job. And although I like that, I really kind of like this one. It kind of looks like the back of his feathers, don't you think? Awesome thinking on that, though. That's a great idea. Okay, let's iron a piece of this flat. And I kind of really like this area right here. Instead of this light or really dark, I like this. It's got a good mix in it right there. Like that. Ah, Frankie said definitely the first one. I think it's so interesting how different minds think, right? I don't know that there's a wrong answer in any of those fabrics that I auditioned. There really isn't. All just personal preferences, right? Let's cut this into 2 chunks of gray. There's one chunk going back. And then this chunk will go back. And we're cutting. But the back of the dots is a close second. I think so too. That was a really good idea. All right, that can go back. All right. Good news is, even though I'm cutting these pieces out by hand instead of with my scan and cut, right? They're not horribly difficult pieces to cut. And it doesn't really take that long to cut them out. Not really. All right, let's lay in this section here. It's going to fit right there. And I think that is going to look fabulous. Fabulous. We're going to let that sit up for a second. And let's move down to his bottom area. I don't know what to call that. Right there. His bottom. TJ Quilts is knitting some washcloths. Okay, white. You know what? On our bird, his bottom area, white part, comes up a little bit higher than the one in the inspiration photo. So what I would like to do is start white and go a little bit dark, brighter white to a lighter white or the light gray. How about that? That would be lovely, right? Because I feel like if I could zoom in on that bird, it's a little bit of gray right in there. I don't know if you can see that or not. So this lighter gray would be perfect for that, right? So let's bring that in and let's shop for some white fabric right there. You know what I have on the top of this? How could we incorporate that? First off, is that too bright? Let's look. That's a little bright, isn't it? This is some white on white fabric. And do you see the flowers cut out of it? This is the white on white fabric that I just cut flower petals out before my cardinal quilt. And then I airbrushed them. But on the back side of this fabric is already some Heat and Bond Light. You see that shiny? That's fusible. So I'm wondering, the paper's already been removed because it was stuck to this scan and cut mat. So we have naked fabric with Heat and Bond Light on it. I'm wondering, is that too bright or is that good? Because I could make this work fairly easy. You know what? If it's too bright down the road, I can always paint it a little wash of some watercolor, which would be translucent, but would darken it up ever so slightly. Let's use it. That was easy. Let's do it. But you know what? I'm going to find my Pilot friction pen because this disappears with heat. So let's use that on that. And in the same fashion that we've worked all along up to this point, let's start with the dark bottom first and work up to the bright. And so let's figure out how much of his little bottom, oops, that's too bright. There we go. Let's figure out how much of his bottom we want to be the grayish color. We'll just start tracing and see where this goes. Kind of like this. How about that? Or maybe like this. Just to let you know, I start getting really kind of loopy when I'm tired. Hopefully that does not happen. Which one do I like better? Alright, let's cut this out of some gray fabric. I'm trying to press down here and not up there where that light pad is. But I'm working in a little confined space right here. I like doing this when we go stay at the beach for a month. It's easier to haul scraps than a sewing machine and all that goes with it. That's such a good idea. That's a really good idea. Yes, you can do some fabric painting for shading. Yes. I think maybe after using this white, if I don't like it, that's how we'll fix it. All right, that can go back. Let's do this. There we go. I'll just pull that extra freezer paper right off of there and drop that back in the scrap bucket. And now we've been using freezer paper last week and this week up into this point, right? The freezer paper just comes off pretty easily. And the glue is what's holding all of these pieces in place, right? However, y'all know, like, I'm a heat and bond person. I love me some heat and bond. But going back, let me take a step back a second. In the first part of this series, I showed you the hummingbird quilt, right? I don't know if you remember that. If you didn't see that video, there's a link to a playlist of all these videos so far in this series. If you go back to video 1 in this series, I show you the hummingbird quilts. It's up there. Sections of that quilt was done fabric collage with Heat and Bond Light. And I kind of decided while doing that quilt, I switched over midway and started doing the collage with freezer paper. Because I will tell you, I did not like dedicating big swatches of fabric with fusible, like Heat and Bond Light. Because once it goes in the drawer like this scrap It has heat and bond light on. It's only good for stuff like this, right? Well, what if down the road I'm doing foundation paper piecing and this is the perfect white and I only have this and it has fusible on the back side, right? And I said, I'm going to end up with a lot of fabric like this in my scrap buckets if this is the way that I end up doing all my fabric collage. So I switched over to the freezer paper. But I do have quite a few pieces from the Hummingbird project, the Cardinal quilt, right? And previous quilts through my time. I do have quite a few pieces of scraps like this that have heat and bond light on the back side. So this is how I would use this, right? I'm going to show you. But I do think now with that fusible on the back side, it's limited. Its uses are limited. So it's a good thing for me that I like doing projects like this where I would still use this up, right? But I am going to switch over to a friction pin. What did I do with it, y'all? Here it is. Because this erases with heat where this gel pen does not. And since I like cutting just outside of the line, this is really good to use because usually when we're working with heat and bond light, we're working with a mirror image and we're tracing on the paper side, right? The paper's gone. And so I have the fabric with the right side facing up. The fusible shiny side is facing down. And I'm going to use a heat erasing pen to trace. And we're going to cut it out that way. Right? And I'm going to use up some of this fabric with the heat and bond light on the back. And I'm going to scooch in so we don't waste too much. And I'm going to start down here and just overlap this light gray section ever so much, like this, right? And then I might even just slightly overlap this section right there, like that, and right up his belly like this. I think that's perfect. And you know what? To sort of tie this white in, I'm not going to put this back. I will use this white for the little slivers around his eye and right underneath of his beak. So let's keep this handy. And then let's cut this out. Now I will say it's a little bit easier to cut when it has the paper backing on the back side. It acts like, you know, a stabilizer a little bit, right? But it's still not difficult to cut it out with that paper gone. And I'm still able to get a pretty exact shape, right? Let's keep this close by, but not near the iron. Let's pick off the paper from this gray area. And let's bring in my mat and let's press this down. How did it go? Like this. And scoochy up just a little bit. There, I think that's good. We're pressing. Actually, I kind of like the brighter white right there. We'll see as time goes on. You know how if you like something one day and then the next day you look at it and you're like, I do not like that. That happens to me a lot. So there we go. That piece had heat and bond light on it. Let's take the paper off of this section, right at his neck. Ooh, yes, I kind of like that a lot too, right? Black fabric for the eye. And some white squigglies. Let's do that before we close out for the evening. Now, y'all have heard me say I'm a heat and bond light girly. I think for this small little detailed work, let's go ahead and use some heat and bond light. I feel like I have more control over smaller pieces. I know, I'm going to have to give the dog, they're being so good. I have to make Harlan some kind of treat too for being so good too. All right. Now I was just saying, anytime you're working with heat and bond light, you really need to work with a mirror image of your drawing, right? And that's one reason why a light pad or a window is so helpful. I'm going to just flip this right over to the back side. And we're going to turn on the light, right? And here's the thing. My drawing does not have the little sprigs that that inspiration photo has. So we're just going to make some up. First, let's trace the little eye. Like so. And so I don't get confused, it's that's the top of the eye. Now I feel like we should be looking at it like this. Let me just freehand draw some little squigglies on there. But you know what? I was thinking maybe you could just cut one big white piece of fabric out and do 2 layers. We could do that. Or we could make it difficult for ourselves and do something like this. Which, you know what? I've had a pretty difficult week, so why stop now? Let's do it like this. And a little gap like that. And I'm just freehanding some squigglies like this. And the eye is going to go over top of that, so it don't have to be really difficult there. And then underneath of his chin, he has some sprigs of white that kind of go like this. Now I think in the nature, the bird is sort of cartoonish, right? To keep it simple for applique and collage, since we're just starting out with collage, right? It's sort of simplified. It's not super high detailed and like exact. So I feel like these squiggles don't have to be like super detailed. And if they were, it really wouldn't match the overall look of this piece, right? So let's kind of just keep it simple. And let's do that. So there's our pieces we're going to trace. And now I can turn this and get this extra paper out of my way. Like so. And then like this. And over like that. So 2 separate pieces of white for the eye, that underneath the chin. And in my drawing, I actually have some bright spots of his eye. Do you see that? Let's do that too from the white. And we can always cut them out, and if we don't like them, we don't have to use them, right? Okay, so here's my scissors. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me this evening. It's Friday. I feel like I should be in such a better mood than I am. Somehow, when you're self-employed, Fridays take on a whole different meaning, though. You know what I'm saying? Fridays don't exactly mean Friday anymore. And I will tell you what, I love this cheap little heat press so much. But 2 things I don't like about it. The cord. It's got a nice long cord with it, but I don't like the cord. It sort of gets in my way sometimes. And it shuts off automatically after so long. So you see me, I keep having to turn it on. I don't like that so much. And do you know what? I really wanted to continue this fabric use, but I traced it on these pieces like that, and it already has heat and bond light on the back. You know what? We're going to swap that white fabric out, I guess. Wonder... We're swapping it. To something very close. There we go. And I need a black fabric. Which I just happen to have a solid right there. So that's what we're doing. Okay, let's move this out of our way. Move this back over. A lot of moving and shifting. All right, black fabric, white fabric, right side facing down. And does that fit? Just barely. Let me trim off some. I don't want to get melted fusible on my pressing mat. So let's just trim as much up as we can. much better. And this is gonna go right there. There's that. I'm gonna tell you what, y'all might hear, those are my neighbor's dogs. If you hear that, dogs, those are not mine. I have had a lot of fun this week. However, I started a lighthouse quilt that I'm working on a pattern for, and I'm going to start cutting these pieces out. And that one is quilted already, and I've started painting it. And I'm going to tell you, I love watching videos of people painting rocks and doing the little mandala, is that how you say it? Mandala designs. They sort of look like starburst, little dot paintings, you know what I'm saying? There's something very relaxing about that to me, but I don't so much want to paint mandalas. Do you know what I'm saying? But I want to paint the dots on something. So last night in the Zoom, I was painting dots in the sky area of my lighthouse. And I think it is just a fabulous. And let me just tell you, I want to paint more dots. And then, so I've worked on that this week. I worked on that yesterday and last night. And I also finished up my cardinal quilt, and I don't know if you've seen those videos. Little snippets. I did not do a full tutorial on that quilt, but I did little snippets as I worked through it. And I airbrushed the applique, and I absolutely love it. I love it. So I'm kind of looking forward to next week because I feel like next week things are going to sort of slow down a lot here. And it'll just be lovely. And I will get to do some more painting on fabrics. Like, these are the smallest pieces I've cut so far for this quilt. And I feel like, you know, if you were doing this and this fussy cutting smaller bits, you know, you don't, this is not necessary for this quilt. I like to be a little extra sometimes. But you know, I could always draw this or trace it on a piece of paper and then throw it on the scan and cut and scan it and then cut my applique that way. I could do that for sure. But why do that when you can struggle and have a good time this way? It's getting in these little squiggly parts. This is the little highlight of the eye. The little twinkle in his eye. That's what this little piece right here is. And I actually think I cut much better with big scissors than I do these fancy scissors. Isn't that funny? Like those great big scissors that y'all see me with, I actually cut better with those. All right, there's those in the eye. And then we're almost done for the night. And I know Harlan would be like, thank you, Lord. He's such a good sport. That's why I don't mind going to an archery tournament tomorrow with him. Okay, there's that trash pile. You know what? Since I got these bins, it has been so much easier to clean up after doing a project like this because I don't have scrap pieces everywhere. I'm keeping it all in my bin, and then the bin just goes back in my rolly cart. It has been lovely. Very lovely. All right. Let's bring this back over. All right, we're going to be eyeballing it. Let's move this out of the way. We're going to eyeball the placement for the eye. We might as well because I've covered up where everything goes anyway. But here's these pieces. Don't want to lose them. Let's take the paper off. The little bits of paper. Ah, see, Selma said the bigger scissors are balanced differently than the smaller ones. I wonder if that's why I cut way better with them than I do the smaller scissors. I have way better control. These are our final pieces for the day, for the night. I don't want to lose them. There we go. Eyeball pieces. Oh, I took that off and the arrow is gone, but I'm pretty sure it goes like that. I was very intentional about putting that arrow for the direction on there too. For nothing. I'm going to tell you the reason I did 2 individual pieces. I guess you could have done one and then cut it in half. That would have been the easier thing to do, right? But do you see in the inspiration photo, it looks like 2 separate pieces of white, right? With a slit right through the middle horizontally. Not that it has to look like that, but that's why I did that. Before I press anything, we're going to play around because before I fuse anything, like, is that necessary? I don't know. What do y'all think? And the white comes down like this from his beak. It does sort of help bring in this white to the bird though, doesn't it? What do you think about that? And then the little bright sparkle of his eye goes in here. Was it like that? Let me look. Yes, like that. Only turned a little bit more like this. You know what? I think these pieces are way too big. What do you think? Let's cut some off. think like it doesn't have to be that big. And I don't really love the big weavies. So let's reduce the size just a little bit. I didn't really like that. And if we don't get it right, I'm going to fuse the eyeballs. I have a sneeze. Ooh, sorry. If I don't get this part white, I'm going to fuse the eye on. And then I'll come in with some white speedball paint some point down the road. I'm not going to fuse something on here that I don't absolutely love. Do you know what I'm saying? Let's take a look at that. Like this. Thank you guys. The pollen has been knocking me out. What do y'all think about the white around that eye? I don't love it. But I do think it's necessary. I just don't love it. And I do think this is a little chunky. So let's take a sliver off of that. Now I will say one of my downfalls is overthinking things to the point of it being detrimental. Like I could overthink it too much. Do you know what I mean? But let's just make that a little bit skinnier, like so. Daniel says he likes it. Frankie fakes maybe just a tad less of it. I think so. I think you're right. Just a smaller. Like this. Like this. I do like it better since I got rid of a lot of the extra. All right, we're gonna press it. Can y'all hear Dolly? Now that's Dolly outside. Do I like it? You see I have the pin just holding that piece in place so it doesn't move. There we go. She sounds so vicious. I don't know if you can hear her or not, but she's barking at the dogs across the road who are also outside. They're communicating. All right, so let's take a look at what we've done tonight. And I am fairly pleased with our fabric selections. I think that is pretty phenomenal. So next week, we're going to finish up the bird, right? And I feel like it being the afternoon, we'll have plenty of time to just knock it out. We're going to do the tail feathers and the wing. Now, so if you take a look, we're going to be working with the same bin of black and gray. Because basically that's the colors of his wings, right? Black and grays. Now, I will tell you, in the same manner, big chunk fabric collage That's what I'll call my method, is big chunk fabric collage. I don't feel like I'm going to be cutting out lots of bits and pieces to fill in each one of these spaces. I feel like that's a piece, 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 right? Carry that line of thinking throughout that whole thing, right? I feel like that's my style of fabric collage. And we're going to finish up the bird next week. Oh, and we'll also do the beak. That'll finish him up. And then we're moving on, right? I feel like after the bird's done, we can really coordinate the background fabrics so that they don't clash. They complement the bird, not clash with the bird. But I feel like we can move on from there. So there's my little robin so far. If you're making this, I would love to see yours. There's a link for the creative crew in the description box down below. And even if you're not making this, we would love to see what you're doing. So feel free to post your pictures over there. And if you're not on Facebook and you still want to share your stuff with me, there's a link to my Etsy store in there. And you can send me a message on Etsy. I would love to see it. Okay? I hope you'll have a fun and safe weekend. I hope the weather is warm if you want it to be. Cooler if that's what you want it to be. I hope you're able to have some creative time sometime this weekend. And I look forward to seeing y'all next Friday. Okay? I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm forgetting to tell you, but I don't think so. No big news between now and then, so I'll see you next Friday. Okay? Thank y'all so much. Thank you. All right, have fun with this, y'all. I'll see you next week. That's the wrong camera. I'll see you next week. Bye.
In the quiet of the evening light, with needles dancing, stitching inside each patch of story, every thread unbinding love and fabric where we belong. Every stitch a whispered prayer, in every corner I find you there. Oh, sweet patchwork of our days, stitched together in so many ways. With every thread our lives entwined in this quilted love, our hearts aligned.